Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. When we think about startups, there's this certain energy, right? This vibe, almost a magic to it
It's true, definitely.
that goes way beyond just the product or even how much money they're making. And you know what? Today we're going to try to get to the bottom of it. We're dissecting this article. It's called The Soul of a Startup
Oh yeah, I've heard of that one.
by Ranjay Gulati. And it really got me thinking, can they hang on to that unique energy, that soul as they grow bigger, or is it just destined to fade away? It's a big question.
Yeah, it's a fascinating question and one that I think a lot of founders and even employees grapple with. You see that initial spark.
Right.
And then the question is, can you keep it going?
Right.
And Galati's take on this is really interesting. He argues that um, the soul, it's not just some temporary burst of energy. It's actually
Like fuel?
yeah, like a driving force, a sustainable source of energy that can really make or break a company in the long run.
Okay, so you're saying it's not just about those crazy hours and that shared hustle that we see so much, that we associate with the startup world.
Right, it's deeper than that. It's not just about free snacks and ping pong tables.
Ping pong tables, yeah. Foosball.
It's about creating meaningful connections, not just among the founders, but with everyone involved. The employees, even the customers. It's
Like a web.
yeah, like a web or like an ecosystem that holds everything together. It's much bigger.
Wow, that's a pretty cool way to think about it. And you know what? He actually breaks this whole concept down, the soul, into three key areas,
Yeah,
right?
he does. He talks about business intent, customer connection, and employee experience.
Perfect. The three things to keep in mind. So let's break them down one by one. Let's start with that business intent.
Yeah, good place to start. So this idea of business intent, it goes beyond a typical mission statement you see hanging on a wall. It's the fundamental reason, the core why behind a company's existence.
But what? Yeah.
Why do we exist?
Yeah, and he actually uses a really powerful example in the article, right? Study Sapuri, which is this Japanese company. They're tackling, educational inequality, and they actually turned down this partnership.
Oh yeah, I remember that part.
It would have been super profitable for them, but it didn't line up with their core mission, making education accessible
It's a tough decision to make.
to everyone, right?
Yeah, especially when you're talking about, turning down money,
Right.
profit apartment.
But it's a powerful example of staying true to your values.
Exactly. And what's so interesting is that decision, actually, that really tough decision, it helped them succeed even more. They attract top talent. They got this reputation for integrity.
Yeah.
And honestly, it makes you wonder how many other companies out there could achieve so much more if they actually lived their why instead of just talking about it.
Absolutely. I think it's a powerful message for all of us. And it leads us nicely to the next dimension, which is that customer connection. Right. Customer connection. Let's get into that.
Yeah, this is about building genuine empathy and understanding with your customers. It's not just transactions. It's not just selling something. It's about creating a real bond, genuine connection.
And I love how Gulati, he talks about Nike's early employees, those Eakins, right? They were so into sneakers. They basically lived and breathed sneakerhead culture.
They got it.
Right.
They were truly part of that world.
Yeah. They weren't just, trying to sell shoes. They were part of the community. So can you imagine? I mean, would you go that far for a brand?
I don't know about getting a Nike tattoo, but
It's what they did.
yeah, they were dedicated.
Dedicated.
But it illustrates the power of genuine connection. But, it's not always about being that, outward facing. There's other ways to build these connections. Think about a company like BlackRock, the giant in the financial world.
Yeah, huge.
Their customer connection is really rooted in trust and doing right by their clients.
So they're not just chasing the biggest return.
Right. They actually avoid certain types of trading practices that could be profitable but could also create conflicts of interest. So they're saying, we're willing to leave some money on the table to preserve that trust with our clients.
I like that. It's like they're playing the long game. Building that trust pays off over time, right?
Exactly. And that approach attracts and retains clients who value that integrity.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so we've got business intent. We've got customer connection. What about that last one? Employee experience. This is the one I'm really interested in. I mean, we're talking about, how companies are treating the people who are making everything happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is where things can really get interesting. Galati emphasizes, again, it's not about perks. It's about fostering a real sense of ownership, giving people autonomy and space to be creative within a supportive environment.
And he gives the example of Warby Parker, that this program where
It gives everyone a voice
Yeah.
and makes them feel like a valued part of the company.
It really makes you wonder, imagine how much more creative and engaged companies could be if they really, truly listened to and valued their employees' ideas.
Absolutely. And that brings us to the next part of this conversation. What happens when this soul, when it starts to fade? How does that happen?
Yeah, that's a big question. How does something so powerful just disappear?
Well, it's often a combination of factors,
Right, I can imagine.
and it usually happens gradually. But it's definitely something we need to talk more about.
Yeah, let's dive into that.
It can be kind of sneaky how it happens. Like you said, it's powerful,
Hmm.
but it can be fragile too.
Right, right.
And one of the biggest things that can kind of chip away at that soul is this relentless focus on growth, like growing at all costs.
At all costs, yeah.
Companies can get so fixated on those numbers,
Yeah.
hitting their targets, expanding,
Yeah.
that they lose sight of why they started in the first place.
Yeah, it's like they're trading their heart for a bigger piece of the pie.
Exactly. And then, as companies grow, they often bring in more processes, more layers of management.
More bureaucracy.
Right, bureaucracy,
The
exactly.
dreaded bureaucracy.
And all that can really stifle creativity,
Yeah.
make it harder to maintain those close customer connections we were just talking about.
It's like too many cooks in the kitchen, right?
Yeah, exactly. A startup that was once nimble and responsive gets bogged down by all this red tape.
Oh, red tape. The worst.
Yeah, and sometimes even when companies try to do the right thing, bring in experienced managers
To help them grow, yeah.
and help them grow, professionalize things, it can actually backfire. Especially if those new leaders, if they don't really get the company's essence, that special something that made it unique,
Right, so they come in and they try to impose all these new new ways of doing things.
and they might mean well,
Oh, yeah.
but they end up crushing the very spirit that made the company special in the first place.
Oh, that's got to be tough to watch, especially for the founders who poured their heart and soul into it.
Yeah, and Galati actually brings up this company, Micromax. They were an Indian mobile handset company, and they brought in all these experienced executives from bigger companies.
To try to help them scale up. Right?
Yeah, scale up,
Yeah.
become more efficient.
Right.
And at first, it seemed like things were going well.
Okay, yeah.
But over time, something changed. Employees started to feel disconnected from the leadership. The customer focus waned, and that sense of shared purpose, that soul, it just started to evaporate. It got to the point where even the founders felt like strangers in their own company.
Wow, that's a cautionary tale for sure. So the question is, how do you avoid that? How do you grow without losing what makes you special?
It's a tough question, and there's no easy answer. It's a real balancing act.
A balancing act, yeah.
But there are definitely companies out there that have managed to pull it off. Like, think about Netflix.
Netflix, yeah, they've definitely grown.
I mean, they've gone through massive transformations over the years, right?
Right.
From DVDs by mail.
Who even remembers that? It's crazy.
I know, right? And now they're this global streaming giant.
Well,
But through it all, they've stayed really consistent with their core intent,
like what they're about, yeah.
their focus on the customer and their commitment to empowering their employees. They've adapted, of course. I mean, their content strategy has evolved dramatically, but their core values, those have remained pretty solid.
It's like they figured out how to be flexible, but without compromising their soul.
Exactly. And they've been really intentional about protecting that culture. They have this culture of transparency and trust. They give their employees a lot of freedom to make decisions and take risks.
And it's working for them.
It is.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
It shows that you can scale, you can grow without sacrificing that startup spirit.
That's encouraging to hear. And you know what? It also reminds me that even if one of those core dimensions, like that business intent or that customer connection, even if it starts to weaken, it's not game over. Like, remember that Warby Parker program we were talking about, those warbles?
Yeah, the warbles.
Yeah.
That's a good example of how, they realized their engineers were starting to feel less empowered,
Yeah.
less connected to the big picture.
Like their ideas weren't being heard.
Right.
Yeah.
And they created this system, this program, where the engineers could actually propose projects that were aligned with the company's goals.
And then everyone gets to vote on them, right?
Exactly. It gave the engineers back that sense of ownership, that feeling that they had a real impact.
That's such a cool idea.
It's a great example of a company recognizing a problem and then actually doing something about it, being proactive about reigniting that shared purpose.
So it sounds like maintaining that soul, it's not a one-time thing, it's like an ongoing process.
It is, absolutely.
Right.
It takes effort, it takes attention, it takes willingness to course correct when things start to go off track.
So why does all this matter? Like, for our listener, why should they care about this whole startup soul thing?
Well, I think it's relevant whether you're building a company, working within one, or just trying to understand what makes some businesses tick.
Right, because it's all about creating workplaces that are not just successful, but also fulfilling.
Right. Exactly. It's about finding that sweet spot where people can do great work, feel valued, and contribute to something bigger than themselves.
Because those early days of a startup, they might feel magical and unique, but those core elements, those elements of the soul, they can be nurtured.
They can be protected,
Yeah.
even as the company grows and changes.
So it's not just about reminiscing about the good old days. It's about actively taking steps to keep that spirit alive.
Exactly. It's about being intentional, staying connected to your customers, and empowering your employees.
It's remembering the why behind the what. And while every company will face its own unique set of challenges,
For sure.
the companies that really stand out, the ones that inspire us, the ones that make a lasting impact.
Most of the companies that have figured out how to hold on to their soul.
So we talked a lot about Ron Gigolatti's perspective, but now I want to hear from you. What does the soul of a successful organization look like to you?
That's a good question to think about. I think for me, it's when you can feel that a company really has this sense of shared purpose that goes beyond just the bottom line.
Yeah.
You know, beyond just making money.
Beyond profit.
Yeah, there's this genuine desire to make a positive impact, whether it's through the products they create or the way they treat their employees or even how they interact with the community.
It's funny because you mentioned impact, and so often we think about success in a very black and white way, like how much money did you make, what are the numbers? But maybe true success, true impact it's measured by something bigger, something more meaningful.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think when employees actually feel connected to a larger purpose, when their work has meaning, it creates this incredible energy. You can feel it.
It's palpable.
Yeah. And it's contagious. It spreads out. you know,
Yeah.
to customers, to partners.
Even competitors, I bet.
Yeah, potentially. It can really change things.
It's like when you walk into a small bookstore, a local bookstore, and you can just feel the owner's passion for books and for creating a space for the community to gather and connect. It's not just about, ringing up sales. It's about something much more.
Yeah, it's about fostering a love of reading.
Right, creating an experience.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a bit of a challenge. Think about this idea of soul in the context of your own work. What is it about your workplace or even companies that you admire? What is it about them that makes them special? What gives them that spark?
Yeah, and how can we all, in our own little ways, contribute to creating that kind of environment? How can we make our workplaces not just successful, but truly fulfilling and impactful places to be?
These are definitely questions worth thinking about because I really do believe that when we tap into that deeper sense of purpose, that's when we create something truly extraordinary. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.